Right, so just as a bit of housekeeping, if people can make sure during this session here that they've set their audio on mute. You can select the mute button here, and you could also use the little red arrow here to minimize your toolbar, and it'll shift it off to the side so that it doesn't give it in the way of the screen. So see as it got down the bottom there. Okay. So moving across. As you know, today's session is going to be about showing you a variety of different reports inside Zedmed Office. Some of those reports are ones that you might be wanting to run on a daily basis. Some of them would be more end of month reports, and then we'll cover some that are more to do with patients, reports on the patients, and some to do with reports on referral doctors and doctors. Just do one check here. Excellent. All right. So at the very top there, one of the most popular daily reports we have under the reception tab here on the left-hand side, the banking. Inside banking, we've got sessions and batches. So print/close banking session, print/close batch. Now, some different places have sessions and batches set up a little bit differently, but one of the most common ways I encounter sessions and batches being used is a common thing for a very busy clinic. We'll have one session per day and perhaps one batch per week. And a session will give you the session report. You'll often run that at the end of the day, and it'll give you a rundown of all of the different transactions that have been made just for that one day. So in this particular case, we'll select this one here. We're doing it for the George Costanza. So this is one of our doctors, that particular bank list. And we'll go down to screen here. Now you see often because we're doing this at the end of the day, it gives us the option to close that particular session off to say, yep, the day's finished. You know, we want to, next time you run this report, we want it to be all of the detail, the new details that have come in to be for a new day. Some people, if it's a bit of a slower clinic that you work at, potentially you might have a session that lasts over a couple of days. It's entirely up to you. Some really busy clinics might run 2 sessions a day for the different shift changes of the receptionists. So seeing as it's midday at the moment, we might have some more transactions coming through later in the day. We won't close the banking session. We'll leave that for the receptionist or the practice manager to do at the end of the day. So we'll say, no, we don't want to close that banking session. And as you see here, let's enlarge it a little bit. We can see it's broken up into the different checks that have come in during this particular time period, the cash, FPOS, and so on there. And you can see there's some cancellations there as well. As the more perceptive viewer may have noticed that this particular session I'm doing here has lasted since January, but that's not normally what you would do. Normally, this is just because this is our test system we're playing around with here. And we've got a total down the bottom here. Like I say, a lot of people will run one session per day. So if you're running this at the end of the day, when you're closing that session, this will be the takings for that particular day. Get back there. And as you see, you can group it specifically by the staff member who's processed those transactions. You could have it with a different staff member on each page as well there. So that's, so usually you will have, that's the sessions there. Usually you have multiple sessions in a batch. You can think of the batch section is like the once a week, the transactions that you take to the bank. I think it's a bit of an old-fashioned idea there, but people do like to get the weekly summary there. So once again, this will give you the total, the particular takings for the lot of sessions that you've had during that particular batch. So you might have, if you've been doing one session every day, Monday to Friday, and then perhaps on the Friday afternoon, you also run this batch report. This will give you the totals of that there, of all of the sessions and everything included. So let's go into screen. We're going to say no, we don't want to close this banking batch because the day hasn't finished yet. Just enlarge this one here a bit more. And as you see here, it shows it's got details of the checks that have been sent through during that week. The totals there. And down the bottom here, we've also got the FPOS and direct deposit and takings as well there. Like I say, it's kind of usually used as an end of week summary, or whether that's for you, that's Wednesday end of week or Thursday end of week, end of financial week. So that's two of the most common daily banking or weekly banking reports there. If we close out of that section there, some very popular reports found under the daily reports section here on the left. The really common one is the attendances report, showing who's been attending during that particular time period. So this is not appointments, just attendances. Let's see, putting in a bit of a larger time range there for the test data. And if I can just reinforce down the bottom here, remember print, just sends it straight to the printer. Screen makes it come up in the screen. You can preview it before printing it, or export if you want it to be sent into saved as a CSV format, which is kind of a spreadsheet format you can open in Excel. Come down here and do screen. Once again, fitting a lot of data on the screen, so it's very small. You can see here during the particular time range we picked, here's all of the different patients that attended. And we can see for the ones that we actually have billed, the particular items that we billed for them as well, and other details like the hospital and so on there. As you'll see from this here, we could break it down more. We could choose the specific treating doctor, the referral doctor, and so on. We could make it a specific patient. So we could say, let's see for the last year when this specific patient actually attended. Remember, this is when they've been marked as attended in the appointment book, not just having an appointment there that they may or may not have turned up on. So for this report to work, obviously the staff have to be marking the appointments as attended when the patient arrives. So if we close out of that one there. Another very interesting report, the waiting times report. I might backdate this one slightly. Oh no, I'll run this for you this way first. So I'll show you with it just a small amount of data. So this is, I'm just going to run this report today for just the period of today for some patients I attended earlier today. So you see we've got Rachel Griffiths and Hugo Weaving there. I might just enlarge this a little bit there. See, Rachel's appointment time was at 10:45, Hugo's was at 10. So at least Rachel wasn't too late. Rachel attended 9 minutes later there and was admitted, what's that, nearly 40 minutes later on, 30 minutes later on. Whereas Hugo Weaving attended an hour after his appointment, but he was admitted merely 8 minutes after that. And the reason I've got these particular strange times in here is you can see that seeing as Hugo Weaving was admitted just 8 minutes after he actually attended, that's why the waiting time there only shows 8 minutes, even though his original appointment time was at 10. So it's not an hour and 8 minutes because he only was actually waiting there from 11. As opposed to, you can see that Rachel here attended at 10:54 and was admitted at 11:27. That's why her waiting time is up to 33 minutes there. But you can change the definition of when the waiting time is from. If you wanted to, you could say it's from the appointment time, whichever there. If we go leave this screen for the moment. So you can see down the bottom here, appointment waiting time defined as whichever was last out of appointment or attendance, or you can choose a particular one out of that. So if we made it appointment time instead, to admission time like we had before, this result will look very different. Because you see there's Hugo Weaving there. If we just count from the start of his appointment time, that is an hour and 8 minutes. But generally, you'd only want to count the time that they'd been waiting after they turned up. But it's up to you. You can pick any of those options there. A lot of flexibility. You can also, if we to return that back to appointment/attendance time, whichever's the later, you could do it just by doctor, display just by doctor, or do it by specific hour. If we do it on specific hour, and I think the data I've got here might need to be improved. Let me just expand that date range there. Not much data in that date range there, but you can see that it's saying that for the appointment times here, for an appointment time that was supposed to start in the range of from 10 to 11, is the waiting time of half an hour there. And for the appointment times that were supposed to start between 11 and 12, you've got not much data. Like I say, you've got appointments that are less than 15 minutes. Normally, this particular screen here would fill out and enabling you to track all of the different movements over time. Well, let's actually, I'll just go back and get a bit more of that data there. No, looks like that's the data that we've got today. But yeah, usually you can use this version of the report to see which particular times of the day you've got the greatest wait times. So perhaps you could put extra doctors on at that time or extra receptionists or something like that. So that's the waiting times report. Now, an important thing I should note there, it's something that I noticed in particular when I was doing setting up the data for this, you do need to make sure that the patients have been billed through the waiting room for them to come up on this report. We'd expect that that'd be the normal way that the billings are done, but that's how it links these particular things on this report. So if they haven't been billed from the waiting room, that specific attendance won't be marked in on this waiting times report. If we close out of this one here, another daily report over here, very popular, is the appointments report, which can be used in lots of different ways, lots of different things done with it here. So the appointment report, once again, I'll set this back a little bit here, start of the month. As you can see, the basic thing that we can do with that is say for this particular branch, for often you would just do it for a specific day there. What appointments do we have? And there we go. So this, traditionally you would do this perhaps, you could print out for each of the doctors, what appointments do we have what appointments does that doctor have tomorrow or even later today? So it works as a good little summary of what appointments they've got there. You could even go into the appointment type section here and say, just show us the new patients that we've got, or just show us the immunizations or just the operations or long consultations that we've got for that particular day. And quite a few different things there. And this is how you'd select the particular doctors. So if we wanted it to be just the patients for George Costanza, Dr. George Costanza, we'd pick that particular option there. We've also, the top section here, this appointments and available slots, cancelled and missed is something particularly popular. So a patient is cancelled if specifically the reception staff have selected their appointment in the appointment book and selected cancel on it there, which you may have seen that option there. It gives you need to specify a reason why it's been cancelled and so on. Or missed is if they've just never been attended. We presume that everybody who actually did visit the clinic has been attended, but if the receptionists haven't marked them as attended because they haven't attended, they'll come up as missed there. So let's see, in that particular same date range we had. So far this month, let's make it larger again there. Allegedly, these people didn't turn up for their appointments. Like we say, you can choose to just see the cancelled ones or just see the missed ones. You've got those options there. Another popular thing that people like to do, especially now in Zedmed version 31, is send out appointment SMSs to the patients based on this particular report. Of course, normally, the common thing there would be to pick, say, for instance, tomorrow. A lot of people just send reminders for the very next day. So we're picking for the 19th because it's the 18th today. Date range is normally fine there. So any of the appointments during that particular time range, obviously we have to be set up with SMS already, and that'll be the topic of a different video. You can come down here, click send SMS, and the particular patients who are signed up for tomorrow will appear on that list. Here's the thing though, instead of just clicking send SMS, it's a good idea to click on screen first to check to see which particular patients we'd be sending to. And I'm pretty certain with the date range tomorrow, I don't have any patients set up there. So let's click screen. And there we go. So instead of, that would be the time where you click on screen to check to see what's going on. Because in this particular, instead of just clicking send SMS and presuming it went to all of the right people and everything like that, you do screen first so you can get a list of who it's going to send to. I'll just backdate the date range here again. So this time we could be sending to the right people, let's see. So click screen, and here's the list of people that the SMS service is planning on sending to. Obviously not the real phone numbers. If they'd already been SMS'd, there would be a tick in this last column here. So that's why I say it's a good idea that if you're going to be sending out the SMSs, tick this up after you've ticked this option here, instead of going straight to send SMS, use this screen option down the bottom here in order to check the people it's sending to. Because you might find it's not either you haven't set the date range here correctly, or you've picked the wrong date by accident or something. All different sort of things possible. Just show in passing briefly here that I imagine you might have the question, how does it know what message to send out to them? You can, if you just wanted to change the message, the SMS message just for this transmission, click on that one there. That was the modify SMS text. And you could change the message here. Obviously you can't change anything inside these particular angled bracket sections here, but it automatically will fill in the details for those particular patients, the particular doctor, and so on. You can just change this on the fly here, and it will send that through. If we close that there and did send SMS or screen, it would send that specific message through. Do note though that if you do come back in here again, it will automatically reset to the standard text. If you wanted to change the text permanently, that's in the SMS configuration in Practice Setup, but we won't be covering that in this particular session today because this is about reports. Moving along though, we've also got the option for these reports, for this report, to run a mail merge. So if you wanted particular letters or appointment grids or anything in a particularly different format, you could use the mail merge. And setting up these particular templates is something we covered in the template session last week. If you weren't a part of that template session there, we've also, I believe we've also now got it up on the Zedmed website under the Lunch and Learn section. So that was the appointment report, very popular. Now we've got some end of month reports. So one of the really popular ones there is the banking, inside the banking reports there. Head up to this banking reports one up the top here. While we can use these first two options here as other ways to get information about the sessions and batches that we mentioned briefly, we've got this reconciliation report down here. And this gives us reports on the particular batches that we've processed in previous weeks. So this will only show closed batches. So for most of you if you're closing a batch each week, that would be the reconciliation report will show will be like the next level of abstraction that'll show all of the different closed batches, all of the different weekly takings there. Now, seeing as there's a test data here, I'm going to have to go and show you one I prepared beforehand. So here we go. Here's one of the bank reconciliation statements. It will show all of the batches down here. Now we've only got one real batch on this one here, but normally it would just show a range of the different batches, batch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 million. This is, as you can see here, hopefully it's not too small on your screen. We've got a column for showing the cash that went through on that batch, checks, Medicare check, cards, the total FPOS, and any reversals for that particular one there. The idea there is so that you can compare it to what you're seeing in your bank statements there. See on the right-hand side as well, if you've got a variety of different bank accounts, you can pick that to do the reconciliation report separately for each of those. So obviously they'll be coming into different bank accounts. Once again, you do also have this option here, export, which will output that report into a CSV format, which you can open in Excel. Righty, now we've also got the transaction GSD report. Now, this particular report, I know certainly one of my colleagues describes it as the Bible of everything financial inside Zedmed. This, as you can tell by all of the different options on this screen here, you can configure it to do lots of interesting things. We often find that in particular, this report is one that accountants are particularly interested in, because like I say, you can run a variety of different things here. To show you what it does, I'll backdate it a little bit there. Screen that there. Here you go. Hopefully that's not too small on your screens there. You can see the variety of different invoice services that have been charged for. You can see receipts that have come in. You'll also on this screen see if there was anything that's been during that time range that's been voided or altered or anything like that as well. See if we've got a larger time range there. Oops. You see so much more data now. Down the left-hand side here, I'll just make it a little bit larger for you. Down the right-hand side, I should have said. We can see that there's credit showing us credits in the system, voids in the system, payments, which of course are always negative because it's removing charge from the system. Quick receipt, all sorts of those options there. See down the end of the report there, we have this particular total, which if you step through the two lines there, the first line is all about what was happening with the invoices, about the billing, and this bottom half of the line here is all about the receipts. So we can see during this time period that I selected, there are 88 services charged. None of them were increased. There were 6 voids, giving us this total there. Net bill there, so nothing was discounted. Nothing was written off as bad debt. Gives you the net adjusted amount there. So in the bottom line here, so payments were received, 29 payments. There's 4 credits, 2 reversals, because remember, of course, reversals will reduce some of those amounts. That's reversals of the payments. This is receipts in the end. And this little last sum here at the end here, billings, taken from the top line there, matched up with the receipt amount, give us a balance of 9,566. So obviously in this particular case, because it's test data, this particular site needs to take in an extra 9,566. It might be though, because this particular report was done in a particular time period, this doesn't necessarily need to be 0, because potentially you may have charged a whole heap of receipts, a whole heap of invoices, perhaps send a whole heap of invoices through to Medicare or health funds if you're a specialist. And so you might be waiting on that money to come back through there. So that's why you won't always expect that to be 0 there. Also, if down the track, if I've run this, pardon me, if I've run this report on one particular day, it might show slightly different details to on another particular day if people have come in and voided off some of the items since. So those will be reflected on the new report. There's not much we can do about it before they've been voided out. Just something to keep in mind, that that's the reason why, even if you keep the date range the same, if you run that exact same date range later in time, you might get a different number because the things have been voided out or perhaps increased or discounted. Righty then. All right, and as we see in this particular one here, you can, so many different options you could filter on. You could say, just show us the details for a specific doctor. Seen that being very popular there. Just certain types of users there. Just specific transactions types, like just the receipts, or just the payments, or just the invoices, or just the adjustments, so on. Just the transaction status. You can have groups here. So this is analysis groups that you can set up in the items table, where you can set particular kinds. So you can have like consumable products and so on. These are just random examples we've put into the system here. And down the bottom here, you could run this report just to show specific items on that report there. Okay, so onto a different tab, onto some of the more managerial reports now. We go to management there, go into the debtors section, down to the debtors report. So usually when we come out on site, a bit of a scary report to come into, or at least a place that you'd like to see who needs to pay you money. We can split this report up into private, government, or third party. For the moment, I'll just get it to show us anyone who owes us money there. I'll just go ahead and run that now. And by default, you don't need to change the dates. It goes back for the back to 1997. You could see here, it's starting to show us the different people who owe money. This top section here, it's showing us, because we asked for all different account types. So we've got a section at the top for private accounts. If we scroll down far enough, I believe there's some government accounts. And potentially later on, there'll also be some third-party accounts where we're waiting for third-party payers to send us the checks. So you can see in this fictional example, we've got Medibank Private and Navy Health Limited that we're waiting on. But if we head further up, back up here, you'll see for, let's see, which patient should we look at? This very top one here, for instance, we've got different columns indicating how old the particular debt is. First column is for between 0 and up to 30 days. Then this next column here, if the debt is now over 30 days, if the debt's over 60 days, 60 to 90 days, and then above 90 days there. So we can see here for Simon Baker, the amount that he owes us, the 150 here, was sometime between 30 and 60 days. So over a month, but less than 2 months. And as you scroll down here, we can see, for instance, Chris Hemsworth has some overdue amounts that are more than 3 months old there. Now you can choose just to see the private accounts or change the particular numbers here. Close that there, and I'll say no for the moment. As you can see here, the aging period. So you can say, you know, it's from 0 to what's the first column there, second column, third column, just so you might decide to make that, you know, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or something like that. It's just up to you what you want on the report there. As you see, you can choose it to run the report just for a specific doctor, and you can choose a particular branch there as well. That thing that I said no to before, if I click preview here again and close, it does by default offer to show us any unallocated credits, to print out the credits report. We would have also got that if we just clicked on credits only on the left-hand side there. The reason why it often brings this up, I guess it's the bad news first and then it wants to give you the good news almost immediately. Sometimes if perhaps the administrators or the receptionists have made some mistakes when putting receipts, payments into the system, they may have created the invoice in the system, but then forgotten to attach the particular payment to it. So that particular patient would come up in the system as a debtor, but at the same time they would also have, so they'd have debt, but they'd also have credit that you would need to follow our allocation process to put those things together. So if you're shocked by the debtors report, some of the answers may be on the credits report here. So we'll say, yes, we do want to see that credits report. And on this simple little report here, it'll show us, you know, and if there were government checks that have been somehow put in the wrong way or third-party checks, they would also be shown on this report because we picked all types. Here you can see that there's so these amounts have been put into the system, these credits. So the 2,700, the 90, 50, 1250, and so on. These are amounts that have been specifically credited to the particular patient, but they haven't been assigned to a specific invoice. So highly likely, particularly in the case of the very large numbers here, that patient probably has an invoice that was supposed to have been paid with this amount of money, but the two things just, for one reason or another, weren't connected together at the time. And do check back, there's a previous one of our lunch and learns there. It was either the first or the third one there that covered receipting off those credits. So like I say, you could get that, just jump to the credits report by doing credits only, but often people like to see the debts first there. Okay, and now we've got the, where did I put this section here? Yep, there we go. The accounts reminder report. So this is for overdue amounts here. We can choose only, in this particular case, private or third party. And this is to print off letters that we're going to be sending to those particular payers. So either a third party payer or the patients themselves. We could do it for specific patients or a range, but normally we'd do it for them en masse. All sorts of options here. We could just do it just for the patients of one particular doctor, but generally we'd do it for patients in this particular date range here. So this goes back to, by default, goes back to 1997. Really important thing down that, well, the title here, we can get, this is a title that is shown on the page that's printed out. So like, overdue please pay, or something like that. And then just like the previous report that we looked at, the debtors report, we can have these particular aging periods, how serious the debt is. With each of these aging periods, we can set a particular date range. So if the particular debt is between 30 and 60 days, it'll send them one custom message. Between 60 and 90, between 90 and over, it'll send them this other custom message here. So those three custom messages there correspond to the custom messages on the side here. So if we've got this set to 30, we could make this 40 if we really wanted. So like I say, you can change it to whatever you want there. So for any of the invoices between 40 and 60 days, it'll add this particular message to the invoice. If it's between 60 and 90, it'll put a slightly more surly message on there. And then between 90 and above, send her an even more direct message there. In this case, like we said, you could alter these however you like. You'll see now that if we leave that set to private there, we come down and, like I say, it's always good to do screen first so you can check how things go and then do print afterwards. So there we go. Let's put that title on it there, overdue please pay. There we go, because this particular invoice, we can tell that was the first message there. So this particular invoice, this particular debt must be between 40 and 60 days, because that's what we sent as that date range. And this particular one here is obviously less than 40 days because that's just the default message. And this is the one important thing that I neglected to put on this particular report here, was you do want new page for each patient there so that it doesn't just run them all in together like we just saw there. So let's new page for each patient. Screen that there, excellent. Now this is what we wanted to see. Each individual one there, just keep clicking down the bottom, too far down the bottom. That's what happens when you've got lots of patients. There you go, and this particular one here, Chris Hemsworth, obviously this particular debt is over 90 days. That's why it's now showing that last message there. This particular one here for Paul Hogan, reason why it's coming up with so many lines there is he's obviously got a lot of outstanding debts for us there. You may have overlooked this invoice. Oh, it's a different one there. So multiple pages there, as we can see. Just scroll down to the bottom of that one. There you go. This has been set to a debt collector. Remember those messages there? The different messages down the bottom are all just based on your particular time periods that you've set here. So remember, it's 40 days and over, or 40 days and up to the next one there. And those link into these three messages here. It just says debt due if it's less than that. So all sorts of lovely things there. Cancel out of that now. Next, so that's the end of the regular reports there. Next, we're going to be having a look at some of the patient reports. Useful to do on occasion. Head over here, so we're still under the management section there, and go to the patient section. Once again, it's one of these reports that we can use in lots of different ways. Particularly in this bottom corner here, we can set lots of demographics for the particular patients. So we could set a particular age range, like we only want to know about the patients who are 65 to 100 years old, for instance. And of course, any of these ones that you haven't ticked enable on the side here, it won't run. Untick that one for the moment. Postcode range, Medicare expiry, first in date, last in date. Remember, of course, first in and last in are based on the first time the patient was billed here and the last time the patient was billed here. So if they came in and weren't billed at a particular stage, that won't include it there. We've also got date of birth range there as well. You can set it for just to print out the patients for the usual doctor or the ones that have been referred by a specific doctor. Come down the bottom here. Let's do screen. Here's a whole heap of patients. This is sort of the generic patient report. So just one line for each person there. It's a good report if you needed to process a whole heap of patients for a particular reason. You can get extra information there if we click extended details. And let's make this one larger again. You see if now it will show their current referral on here as well. Once again, you might want to do things like, instead of the export option down the bottom, we've got the option here to save it as a CSV file in case you needed to export it into your Excel to do something particularly fancy with it there. Or you could even do mail merge there if you wanted to print out a particular fancy grid of those details, or if you wanted to print them out in some sort of letter format, if you wanted to do it there. One important thing that you usually want to look into with some of these, if you are printing something out, letters out for all of them, to set the, let's see, status on the side here, you normally want that to be current and casual patients there. Because by default, the list of patients, if we leave it set to all, it will also include the deceased and archived patients. So if you are just wanting a list of your current patients, pick the current and casual option there, particularly if you're printing out letters for them in the bottom on that side there. Now, another very similar report to that, but with a different function. Reports, if we go into patient service report. So once again, that section was on the right and last section is now on the left, this one. You can filter. This will produce a list of patients. You can filter them on a variety of things like age, range, surname, and everything. But if you see in the top right section here, you can specify to return a list of patients who've just received a particular service or have not received a particular service. So if we had a particular item code 12345, we could say, show me the patients who haven't received that particular service. By default, it'll show you the last week there. I could say, show me the patients who received an item 23 within the last, let's see, within the last year. Remember, screen is always a good option down the bottom here. So these are all the patients I've got here that have had an item 23 in the last year. Normally you'd expect it to be a lot higher than that. But alternatively, we could use this section here to say, show me the patients who have not had item 23 within the last year. And because it's test data, we've got a lot more patients there. So you could use a variety, you could use this report with, putting in the right item codes and everything, and perhaps a date range, for instance, to say, okay, so perhaps patients who are male and between 65 and 100 years old, who have not had a particular flu-lax jab this year. While you can just print off that particular report, one of the options that's become particularly popular with version 31 as well is you can also send an SMS message to the patients who meet that particular criteria. Obviously, your system has to be set up to use the SMSs, but by default there, you set up the particular criteria, you would do screen to check that that it was the right people, and that it was perhaps you hadn't stuffed up and made it from ages 6 to 100. And then when you're sure you got that right, you'd click send SMS, and it sends whatever the message is you got in this particular box here. So all different sorts of options that you can pick there as well. Okay, extra report in that section as well. We've also got the recall report here. The recall report, often that will be used by nurses to check to see whether there's any patients who are due for to come in for a recall at a particular time. Set the maturity date for the date range that you're interested in, and then do screen or print according to your needs. This is another one of these ones where I had to have a canned picture to show you. So if I just jump back. Apologies. Looks like I closed it when we were in this before. There we go. Seamless. There's the recall report. And you can see in the particular date range that we put in, there's this particular patient. It's got some recalls to see Dr. Philip Davis. And this particular patient here, the recall for Warren Herrick. So a useful little report to check out what's going on there. Okay. And so now we've just got a trio, almost at the end there, we've got a trio of doctors' reports. So if we come down to, let's see, the practice setup here, and go down to, sorry, just a moment. Oh, it's on the screen already. The referral doctor statistics here. So if we come into this section here, we'll be able to see the particular patients that have been referred by specific doctors here. So if we run this for a particular date range, oops, sorry, date range. You can see here each of the doctors. I'll just enlarge this slightly. We can see each of the external referring doctors, the patients they've referred to this particular site. So this is Jackie Chillies has referred these particular patients. Larry David's referred these patients, and so on. And we can say the minimum number of referrals and so on, or whether we wanted to just do it for a specific referral doctor or all of them, or just for a specific treating doctor or all of them. We can also do this monthly breakdown here that'll show over time when the particular patients were referred. As you can see here, for Jackie Chillies, there was 5 referred in October. For Michaela Holden here, 1 referred in October there. Normally you'd see a bit of a range of dates over those ones there. We've also, as the final report there, we've got this statistics report here. So this report will show statistics specifically for individual items, so that you can see whether specific items are, how they've been prescribed, how they've been invoiced. So I'll backdate this date range again. Oops. Once again, you could set the particular, all of the, all sorts of reports, like a specific treating doctors, referring doctors, all of those sort of categories. Let's just open that one up there and enlarge. You can see down the far left-hand side here, we've got the different item codes. And then along here, we've got the different, along the top here, we've got some of the different fee types that could be charged for these particular items. So you can see here with an item 23, in the date range we chose, it was invoiced 4 times at the schedule 100%, so the Medicare 100% rate. It was also, if we look across the right here, invoiced 17 times at the private rate. Unusual, but okay. You can see further down here, for instance, for this 51300, it was invoiced 13 times at the private rate. So it's a bit of a report where you can look through them here. So you can see the 104 here was invoiced 3 times at the private rate, but 10 times at one of the insurer's rates. Now, this is the default set of prices along here, showing the Medicare rate, the 3 Medicare rates, the 3 DVAs, and a work cover, a motor vehicle, and at the very end there, no, and it's got the totals there. But what we could have chosen instead, so that was the standard fee group. We could look at the doctor's fee group or the insurer's fee group. So the insurer's one will show all of the different health funds that you've got in your system, rather the different fee types, fee levels, fee schedules you've got there. Or if we go into the doctor's one, for instance, as you'll see here, it'll show private fee number 1, private fee number 2, and so on there. Obviously, at this particular site, it's only using 1 private fee, but if you had, say, for instance, 4 different doctors with different private fees, or even 3 with 4 with 3 different fees, you would see the different amounts in each of those columns there. It's just work, it's a good report on the different statistics of that particular, those specific item codes. By default, obviously, it will show all service items, but you could pick specific item codes from this list here. And that's brought us to the end of what's a very quick run through of the different, some of the different reports in Office there. Just take a few moments, see if you had any questions, whether I can answer them. If you put them through in the chat section there, any that we can't answer right now, we'll send you an email through afterwards. So you're lucky this time we're not putting you through a questionnaire like we do some of the weeks. Wait a few moments. No, I think that looks fine. I'll just take you back to our screen here. Like we say, you can get more information and assistance from the Zedmed website. So we've got our phone number up the top there. We've also got our help button there, the green help button, which takes you to lots of different how-to guides inside Zedmed. Also got the feature requests section here, where you can send through interesting new requests that you've got for Zedmed. But also we've got support and training section here. All of the recorded videos that we've put together for this will be under you. If you hover over that, there'll be a section for Lunch and Learn through there. And we say you will need to remember to register for the upcoming Lunch and Learn webinars. We're about to put a whole heap of extra ones there on the website for, I think it's about the next couple of months. And send any feedback to implementation@zedmed.com.au. Like I was showing you there before, there's a variety of different sources of information. You can use the log on section of the Zedmed website. There's a whole heap of manuals and software there. Call our support desk. And there's even, for emergencies, we've got after-hours support there as well. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you again another week.